a reference point for what these guys out here are going to talk about here in a little bit. So this is a really, I've never seen anything so comprehensive on Oklahoma City bombing. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Colin and Lisa Gariani, Chris Emery, and Charles Key are esteemed former state representatives who we're so happy to have here with us tonight. I'm going to let you guys introduce each other, so just go right into it.
Hello. My name is Holland, and I'd like to thank Chris for inviting me to speak here today, and to Lisa for working me in, and of course to Shiloh for providing a venue where kindred spirits can gather and commiserate in conspiratorial topics.
A little louder.
I'm asked to speak here today because for the past year or so I've been reading and research and passing out a newsletter. The Dredger, which is stack of which back there, got it out of my hand. It's a free newsletter. And basically I got tired of bitching and mourning from the sidelines and decided to engage in what Alex Jones calls infowar, which is the education of our fellow humans with information that is reliable and sourced and contrary to what is being force-fed to them by the corporate media. I suspect that most of us here today have a healthy distrust of the prepackaged propaganda being pushed by the major media outlets. This is good. For in this new information age, we have to be our own journalists. To be an informed citizen, you have to gather this information for yourself. Journalism is just a gathering of information that is already out there. And it's ours for the taking. In September 2000, the neoconservative think tank Project for a New American Century issued a report for George W. Bush before he was even selected for the presidency. It was signed by such luminaries as Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld, and Paul Wolfowitz. Besides calling for an invasion of Iraq and a new Pearl Harbor to initiate a new American empire and the use of biological warfare to target specific races, they called for, quote, the political control of the internet, end quote. Why control the internet? Why do Dick Cheney, Paul Wolfowitz, and others of their ilk want to control the internet? Because the internet allows people to pull information that cannot be controlled. You're allowed to circumvent traditional media monopolies. And I'm not talking about just going to conspiracy websites. My newsletter, The Dredger, uses for the most part conventional news reports that are left out as the media packages its stories for mass consumption. The media's job is to sell you shit. Shit in the form of mass-produced stories that provide a vehicle for a commercial that also try to sell you shit. If people knew what was really going on, there'd be a revolution. And revolutionaries don't buy shit. The media doesn't want shiny, heavy people either. Heavy people don't buy a lot of shit either. The media's job is to keep people in a mild state of discontent, to be soothed by the great American ideal of consumerism. We all saw in the days immediately after the Oklahoma City bombing, first-hand news reports of the government saying that it had found at least 2 more unexploded bombs in the building, each of which was larger than the first. We all saw eyewitness accounts of John Doe number 2. And media reports of the government's own informants saying that they had tried to warn their handlers that a plot to bomb the Warner building was underway. And leaked information from federal agents that the video cameras pointed directly at the Ryder truck showed more than one person in the vehicle. Yet now it's as if these reports never existed. It is 1984. In the novel, the protagonist Winston Smith's job was to cleanse media reports of inconvenient information. George Orwell wrote 1984 because he knew that history could be erased. He was motivated by the complete lack of any history of the slaves that sustained the Roman Empire for hundreds of years. And they are trying to erase history today. Channel 4 News here in Oklahoma City led the way for a time in exposing the lies of the bombing. Brad Edwards interviewed people who were told personally by ATF agents that they had been warned not to come to work on April 19th. J.N. Davis of the same station interviewed dozens of witnesses who saw that they could be by men of Arabic origin. But Channel 4 halted their inflammatory investigation once that station was purchased by the New York Times Broadcasting Corporation. Imagine that. David A. Hoffman wrote a very informative book called The Oklahoma City Bombing and the Politics of Terror. I have a copy of it. I won't give it out because all the remaining copies were ordered pulled by a federal judge. It is the erasure of history. The deadly opponent ridiculed Charles Key for trying to open an independent investigation into the bomb. They are trying to erase history even today, so it never existed. One of my favorite quotes is from John Loeffler. He said, "Your failure to be informed does not make me a wacko." That's true. I also like a quote from the one-time suspect in the assassination of JFK, Kerry Thorne. He said that paranoia is just a higher form of awareness. Most people are persecuted beyond their wildest dreams. Thornley was embracing the slur of paranoid. But I reckon that you're not paranoid if your claim of persecution is valid. So when people call you paranoid, give them reasons to feel paranoid. By being your own journalist, by pulling information and sourcing it, you can present your case to the uneducated in an informed manner. It is true that most people will turn their heads away and they won't want to know the truth or live in denial. Don't worry about it. If you manage to convince just a few people to question their conditioning, that is a victory. Change is usually initiated by a determined minority. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'll introduce myself since I have a really hard name. So, Lisa Gariani. And Chris and Charles asked me to speak a little bit. I'm just going to take a couple of minutes. And I was called about midnight, the day of the bombing, by a friend who worked in the journalism department at a college. And she said, "Get down to this address at 6 in the morning." So I went down there, and I was hired by a cable news network. I'm one of those horrible media people he was just talking about. But anyway, so I wasn't actually one of them. I was just hired on for about 90 days. But while I was there, I did get to see a lot. And one of the things I did see was the evidence about the videotapes that don't exist now. They do exist. And I know that for a fact. And we were told to pull the videotapes story. I think about an hour after it went on the air, somebody called from the top and said, "Pull the story about the videotapes." And that was the last anybody ever heard about them. So, anyways, and I was just going to read something just to give you something to think about. As far as a motive for Timothy McVeigh, I don't know if any of you have ever read the letter that he wrote to his sister in he mailed it on October 20th, 1993. And it kind of gives you an idea of what was really going on. I don't think McVeigh lied to his sister. I think that anybody writing a letter to their sister would be somewhat, telling the truth. So, has anybody read that letter before? Okay. It says, he wrote, "Out of a group of 400, one-day information, 10 social security numbers were called out. No names and told to leave formation. Mine was one of them. The 10 of us were told that out of the select group of 400, we had scored the highest on certain tests. We had been selected because of our intelligence, physical makeup, physical abilities. We were to feel special and part of a hand-picked group. We were all asked to volunteer to do some work for the government on the domestic as well as the international front. 1, we would be helping the CIA fly drugs into the United States to fund many covert operations. And 2, the military consultants were to work hand in hand with civilian police agencies to quiet anyone who deemed to be a security risk. We will be government-paid assassins." Get you a new insight on things like Waco, huh? They were all murdered by hitmen. Anyways, I just wanted to read that letter and give you something to think about as you go doing your research, like Colin suggested. The murder bombing is a never-ending rabbit trail of new witnesses coming forward to this day that are still calling Charles and I and Chris and that saw things and heard things. Unfortunately, after 10 years, it's hard to take the physical evidence. All you can do is get affidavits, and they don't really stand up in court. But anyways, I want to thank you for letting me talk for a little bit here, and I'm going to introduce you to Chris and Marie.
Bear with me, I'm reading a copy of the book. I want to thank Jenny for inviting
January of 2003. I'm originally from the upper Midwest, relocated to Texas, lived there for about 18 years, so I can appreciate the folks coming up here from Austin. It is quite a drive. Thank you, Jack, and your associate that came up. We appreciate that. I became interested in this case when I was actually researching the TWA crash off of Long Island in July of 1997 or 96. It happened a year and 3 months after the Oklahoma City bombing. A lot of you that may have not had a chance to study that case and then perhaps in with a lot of the conspiracy issues that we're dealing with tonight, the plane was actually shot down. And through a lot of that research, at the time I was dating was now my ex-wife. She was working for TWA, and to really drive the message home on how sensitive that case was, about 3 months after I'd met her, I was really thick into a lot of the facts about it. I was calling pilots, former pilots and engineers, and doing a lot of internet research. She came home one day from work. She worked at the FW airport in their ambassador club, which is a VIP club. And she was in tears, and I said, "What's wrong?" And she says, "I was told by my station manager to have you back away from the case." And I said, "Why?" Well, it just so happened that the employees union, the International Association of Machinists, was a big contributor to the Democratic Party. Bill Clinton was in office at the time. And in no uncertain terms, their top-tier management were specifically empowered to tell any employee who worked for TWA, regardless of the capacity, whether they're pilot, flight attendant, baggage handler, mechanic, ticket agent, not to touch the subject. Well, at the time, she had over 16 years of seniority, and I was absolutely furious, not at her, but at the principle of the fact that the employees union, the employees pay dues too, were telling them to shut up about the case. I later had the opportunity to speak with a former mechanic with TWA, and I'm not going to go on long in this case, but I want you folks to appreciate how serious this situation is, not only Oklahoma City, but everything else that's happening in the future. This particular mechanic worked out of the Kansas City hub, a hangar, for 18 years, and he told me that the wiring that the NTSB and the FBI claimed was faulty on that flight hadn't been used on a Boeing plane since September of 1969. And he had proof of that with what they call a service directive. This is a memo that's sent out to every single mechanic, both at Boeing and at TWA, specifically directing them on what to use and what not to use on those planes. And it was by the impetus of an Aeroflot flight that crashed in Uganda in September of 1969. No less than 5 days after that, TWA yanked all that wiring. They literally took the wiring out of their planes. And the FBI and the NTSB had the audacity to tell us that's what caused the crash over Long Island in July of 1996. It's complete bullshit. And that's what we're dealing with here. If they can't tell us the truth, then why should we have them lead us? Anyway, so I went ahead and changed gears with the Oklahoma City case. A good friend of mine, in fact, Charles knows him, Jerry Longslaw, was instrumental in getting a lot of the raw footage that you saw on Alex Jones' clip and others, almost 2.5 hours worth. And I looked at this tape, and they said, this case is completely upside down. There has to be a thorough follow-up. And it just so happened that I stumbled across Charles Keith's name on the internet, and Jerry said, yes, you have to go meet him. And Charles and I met first in June of 2001, about 3 months before 9/11 happened. I drove up here, and it didn't seem like it, but 14 times after that, round trip to Oklahoma City. So I decided to move here in January of 2003 to further my career in the travel industry business as well as working on the film. And I don't regret 1 minute of it. I want to thank everybody in Oklahoma City for helping me. And of course, there were some victims, family members, and survivors that didn't want anything to do with this. But I'm going to wrap it up here. Let's just go over a couple of the points here. And by the way, this banner, these are 2 of 6 that we had made up, and we used them for backdrop for not only an information distribution effort down by the memorial across the street by the Jesus statue. Maybe you folks are familiar with that. We have the handout here. It's a 2-page handout on the table. You're welcome to take it. And it clearly it reviews 6 of the 45 unanswered questions in this case. And they're valid. I mean, they're just common sense questions, and we just need the truth. We had 168 people that passed away in this case, and we don't want to remember their deaths in a lie. And we were seeking justice for those people as well as the victims' family members and survivors. And we do have proof that this was an international case of terrorism, and they are due compensation accordingly. The top banner we have here, you saw Hoppy Heidelberg in the film. He was a grand jury member. And Charles, correct me, I think there was 12 members of that grand jury. Hoppy was the only one that had the foresight and the fortitude to actually read the grand jury handbook and see what he had the right to do and what not to do. And he simply asked Judge David Russell, who presided over the grand jury, for, and there's a letter that he had typed out. It was dated October, October 9th. And he asked for 10 witnesses, close to 12 pieces of physical evidence, expert ballistics, people from the law enforcement as well as the civilian community, and photos and videos. The judge took them 19 days to return the reply, and he dismissed Hoppy Heidelberg without cause. There was absolutely no reason in the letter. He just said, "You're dismissed." And he was told not to talk about the case. Anyway, Hoppy's famous quote here says, "The FBI these days, their job is to sweep up the broken glass," and that's exactly what they would throw from the city. Now, I do want to qualify that there were a lot of, both on the local, the county, the state, and the federal level, there were good law enforcement officers that came forward. Charles can certainly vouch for this. They were giving him information as well as the bonding committee and just said, "Please, get this information out. We don't want to remember this case in the law." It was the top-level decision makers of the Justice Department that chose to walk away from this, as though it really never happened. And it's shocking. So we do commend Hoppy Heidelberg for what he did, and shortly after he moved here, I had a chance to interview him at his ranch. We sat down for about 5 hours and walked around and just talked about the case. And he says, "Chris, it got so bad that my friends, the people that I used to do business with and just socialize with, didn't want my phone number on their bill and vice versa. The FBI was tracking who he was calling, who he was talking to." This is a member of the federal grand jury. He wasn't a victim. He didn't have anything to do with the crime, and they were treating him as though he was a criminal. So that's a facet of the case that's going to be coming out in the documentary film. By the way, our plan is to release it by the end of next year, give or take a few months. We're going to try to be as thorough and respectful and as objective on this case as we can. The bottom banner here is of, in a way, it's actually commemorating a police officer. He was the very first OCPD officer on the scene of the crime. He was issuing a traffic ticket 4 blocks away with the name of Terry Agee. He saw items in the building. At least that's what we're led to believe, according to what some of the family members have said, as well as fellow officers. We don't have any concrete evidence of what he actually saw, what he didn't see, but we know that he was very upset at the way the official story was being presented and what he actually saw. They were completely different. I do know that his commanding officer, Lieutenant Joan Randall, I don't know if she's still with the police force, ordered him to cut down his report on the case from 13.5 pages to less than a page and a half, and he refused to. Officer Agee refused to be part of the official Good Old Boy Network. The morning of his death, which was May 8, 1996, a year and 3 weeks after the bombing, he was allegedly on his way to a storage locker in Kingfisher to get information to return to the federal government. He had entrusted, he had the trust of some of the agent, supposedly. But on his way back to Oklahoma City, he realized something was going on, at least that's what we were led to believe. He tried to lose them and shake them from chasing him. And he was found in a farm field 23 miles west of downtown Oklahoma City, brutally murdered, 1.5 miles from his car. And the facts of the case are that he was anemic. His parents, his mother and his 2 sisters said that he had blood sugar difficulties, so he would actually get weak very fast, quicker than most people would. And the loss of blood that he had out of his body, he shouldn't have made it no more than 20 feet. His heart would have stopped, he would have fell down. Well, they had him over 1.5 miles from his car. That is a whole other facet that we're going to cover toward the tail end of the movie. This officer served the Oklahoma City Police Department and us. He protected our backside for over 7.5 years, and he was brutally murdered. That's unacceptable. It was Police Chief Sam Gonzalez, who was on duty at the time of the bombing, refused to follow up. In fact, we know that he flew out to the crime scene with Bob Ricks, former FBI, who's now the police chief in Edmond. So anytime you see Bob Ricks, just think twice about his integrity and the fact that he just bald-faced lied about this case and had no desire to even follow up on Terry Hickey's case. And the reason being is because it was on federal land. This is on farmland. It was leased by the federal prison out in El Reno. And the second police chief, let's see, we had Sam Gonzalez, we had William Berry, refused to follow up on it. Now we have William City. This is an interesting character here. Bill City was the public information officer for the police department. He served as a captain at the time of the bombing. And he was instrumental in helping pander some of the lies about the case. Now he's our police chief. So we have three people that had the prime opportunity to follow up on this case and refused to. I do want to close. Thank you for your time. There is copies of the final report in the back. We are selling the normal for $30 on the internet. We are asking for donations of $15. Every dollar that we do get will be put toward the production of the film. We are going to be auctioning off a hard copy edition after we're done here. And half the proceeds there will go to Jenny and help her to defray the cost of this. Thank you so much, folks. And I want to introduce Charles, for all of you folks that aren't aware, served in the House of Representatives here for 12 years in Oklahoma City. And it was his former secretary that was killed in the bombing, which helped him prompt his interest in investigating the case. I'll say no more. Thanks, Rich.
Appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight, and I really appreciate Jenny and everyone else who has been responsible for putting this together. This is fantastic. Much more of these kinds of things need to be done. There's no place I would rather be than with people like you, people of like minds. Especially after what I've gone through in the last 10 years, I've had a real education. I'll tell you a little bit about that. So I really appreciate that, and I really appreciate Chris. Chris and I have become very close friends. He has done a fantastic job to pick up the ball in the Oklahoma City case right here in Oklahoma City after many of us that were directly involved in it, some you see in that picture there, had really just about run ourselves into the ground trying to keep the battle going. And Chris was a godsend, and Lisa likewise, and I really appreciate both of them tremendously. But I really appreciate the organizers of this event, and I can't believe it's been 10 years. I mean, if you saw the picture of me on the film, you can see that 10 years. 10 years have really gone by. I wish I could tell Chris, I wish I could go back and look like that again. That'd be wonderful. But let me ask you, do you want to go see 10 years go by and see things get worse? I mean, can they get much worse? And let's still be able to come to events like this. I don't want them to get worse. And I'm afraid that if we don't find some way to do something about the problems we've got in this country, we're not going to be able to do things like we're doing here tonight. And who knows how much worse. So I hope that this will help spur more organization, more efforts of people to join together and to do things, to wake up the rest of the sheep out there. People that are afraid, and people that are just willingly selling out for a paycheck or retirement benefit or whatever. And that's what I really care about now, and that's why I appreciate everyone here and the organizers putting this together. Well, let me just talk a little bit about some of my experiences in the Oklahoma City case. Lisa read this letter about that Tim McVeigh wrote to his sister. He wrote a lot of letters to his sister. They were very close, if you know much about this case. And when you look at all of the testimonies, all of the evidence that tells us about Tim McVeigh, which of course was a very big thing back in 95, 6, 7, as the Oklahoma City bombing happened and the prosecution and federal government and others were beginning to put their case together, and the media was studying this person that did this. McVeigh was, like Lisa said, not the kind of guy that would just go around and shoot his mouth off and making stuff up. And I think that particular letter is really very important in this whole case. Because what McVeigh was saying is that I, along with some other guys, were being recruited to be what I call to be part of a black ops operation. And, he's either telling the truth or he's lying. His background doesn't indicate that he was a liar, that he just made stuff like that up. I think his behavior in this case, before, during, and after the Oklahoma City bombing, might very well indicate that maybe he really was part of some black ops organization. He was used or he was willingly going along with something. In one story I'll tell you a couple of stories that I experienced that you won't find in that book. Because what we did in the final report is, after we had sought to do some other things, we were asked by some congressmen that we went and visited in Washington, D.C. to put our findings, again, we've gone through a lot of trouble, and with the help of some people that had the money to donate, to hire professional investigators and others, we had gone through a lot of trouble to put together affidavits, all kinds of information to prove and verify what really happened in the Oklahoma City case. As we began to put that together, we were asked by many members of Congress to put this in a report form, and we never really dreamed it would turn into such an effort, but it turned into a big effort, and that's the result of that. Well, one of the things that happened along the way is I got all kinds of people that would contact me all the time, as you can imagine. Everything from legitimate input to truly kind of crazy stuff, to put it one way. And everything in between. And I had people that were sending me stuff on mail, calling me up on the phone, dropping stuff on my state capitol office. And I had a lady that would drop by a letter that was typed out that she would drop by every once in a while. And she would sign Doug. And it was always dropped by when I was not there, 2 or 3 or 4 times. So I told my secretary, Linda, I said, look, if this lady, have you ever seen this lady? She goes, I saw her one time. She came out and said, take this. I said, tell her I really appreciate her help, but I can't do anything with this information unless she can sit down with me and talk about, why it's legitimate and verified. Well, it just so happened, long story short, that eventually took place. And that story then developed into me meeting with a U.S. Senate staffer that had been a staffer for us, a U.S. Senator for a long time, previously worked for U.S. Congressman. And he told me, long story short, he told me that he knew he had information and talked to individuals higher up in the government that said that the genesis, these were his words, the genesis of the Oklahoma City bombing began right after Waco in 1993. And it was started by some higher-ups in the ATF, some other high government officials, to create this fake sting operation to make the ATF look good, like they were out there doing their job, stopping bad people from doing bad things like blowing up bombs in populated areas. And he said that was the genesis of it. And I asked him, I said, well, what happened after that? How did it develop? He said, I don't know that. I just know that was the genesis of it. That was the beginning of it. Very important piece of information, I think. Information like that's hard to come by. It's certainly hard to verify. But I'm certain in my own mind that this was legitimate information. This guy was telling me information that he knew for a fact. He really wasn't wanting to be very forthcoming with a lot of information that he had. But when you couple that with some of the other things that we find in the Oklahoma City case, the letter that Lisa read from Bacon's sister, Jennifer, when you look at the situation with Andy Strassmeyer, the West German that came over here to the United States, and it was given very special treatment. He clearly had an important role in this case. Some think that he might have been Dubé's handler, or at least worked with Dubé. It really shows that there were things going on in the Oklahoma City case that were more than just simply a surveillance case tracking certain individuals, and it blew up right in their face, figuratively and literally. And so, once you look at a case like this, and as you start learning about a lot of others, like I'm sure most, if not everyone in this room has done, you start finding out that there's really a whole other, kind of another world going on out there. It's like the movie The Matrix did such a good job of portraying, this world that on one level we all think this is the way it is. We learn in eighth grade civics, and everybody that goes like office, most of them at least, are trying to do the right thing. They're all care about us and all that rock crap. And Then there's this other world underneath. And most people don't want to delve into that world because of various types of fear. And that's been part of my education, to kind of summarize and kind of summarize what I've done in the last 10 years. 10 years ago and longer, I wasn't totally ignorant of government cover-ups and corruptions and things like that. I had a pretty good working knowledge. But I wasn't really deeply involved in pursuing. I was probably one of those persons on the border that would have said, well, yeah, there's probably some cover-ups, but there's probably not as much conspiracy and cover-up that a lot of people claim, because after all, somebody would just pop their head up and tell the truth, you know. And some of these government people finally just spill their guts and tell everybody all about it. And I found out the hard way that's not the way it is, you know. It's not really like that. Well, on the other hand, a lot of people have been doing it for a long time, haven't they? They've been trying to wake people up and tell them what's really going on in their government, how it really works. And so the education I got was pretty in-depth in a lot of ways. I think the part of it that I learned and have the most value even today is what I call the psychology, what I learned about how people really think and act and how they react to people like us, to situations like this, when you try to talk to them about it. You know, you get called a wacko, a nut, a conspiracy theorist, an anti-government, this, that, and the other, whatever. And that's the thing that I'm most interested in trying to find some way and do whatever I can, work with other people, do anything that I can to try to help wake more people up. You know, bring them up to the cold, hard truths of what's going on, and with our government in particular, and shock them, if necessary, as many people will wake up, into looking at the facts and the truth, and then hopefully some people will then begin to take actions like many of us have. And I think that's really all we can do. You know, probably other variations on that, things that we can do, but ultimately we have to do that or we're going to lose our freedom. You know, we're not going to be able to do things like this. We're not going to have any inkling of the kind of freedom that we've had in our lifetime. One of the stories I like to tell about the Oklahoma City case, how many people remember Bob Mason, former district attorney here in Oklahoma City? Of course, you know, we got Wes Lane now. Wes Lane worked for him for a long time. And Wes Lane, you know, I really get sick and tired of hearing about him from time to time. He's a really good guy. You know, on the one hand, he's a really nice guy. He's a good moral person. But I get so sick and tired of people like that like to wear their morality on their sleeve, but when it comes to many other things like Oklahoma City, we can go down the list with this current office holder. They're like the three monkeys, you know, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. And Wes Lane's one of those guys. But Bob Mason, when he was in office, when we were working with him, after we had filed to have a grand jury that we had a panel here in Oklahoma, petition circulated and didn't have it go into effect, we had to fight this court battle. Some of you will know about that. And after a year and a half, we won several court battles. It was on December the 24th that we got our next to final victory. I had this conversation with Bob Mason on the phone about 3 weeks later. And I was saying to him, based on what those in our group and our attorney had suggested, I had this conversation to find out what he's going to do next. He's going to appeal it one more time. I had this conversation with him basically saying, look, Bob, why don't you give up this effort to try to stop us, to try to thwart this grand jury from going into effect, and just give it up, because all the case law was on our side, the Constitution was, and everything was on our side. And that's what the courts continually said. And he stopped for a moment on the phone with me. He kind of takes a deep breath and he goes, I can't. They won't let me. And it just kind of shocked me when he said that. You know, I can't. They won't let me. And I said, what do you mean they won't let you? Who are you talking about? They. And it caught me so much off guard, I kind of started machine gunning with questions. I didn't really give him a chance to respond. And he kind of interrupted me after a little bit. He said, look, can we get together and talk about this? Xavier, our attorney, and the other people, Linda, remember? And I said, yeah, but it'll have to be in the morning because we're not going to drag this thing out. morning in his office. Big conference table, about 6 or 7 of his people around it, all these assistant DAs, and me, our attorney, and Glenn Wilbur, who's deceased and passed away now. That was Edie Smith's stepfather that fought this battle for so long. So we're all kind of mingling there, getting ready for the meeting to start. I sit down right next to Macy, and Macy kicks off the meeting and says something like, well, I guess I called this meeting, I guess I'll kick it off, and blah, 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 we're here to talk about this, that, and the other. And he turns to me and says, Representative Key, you got anything you want to say, and blah, blah, and so I say some things. I said, look, essentially the same thing we said the night before. I said it the night before. I said, we've talked about this before. We've been in your office many times. The case law is on our side. With all due respect to your office, you really don't have anything to stand on. Our position is still the same position. Give up this battle and just let this grand jury be impaneled. And just kind of laid it out there in the sales pitch, one more time. Big old guy, Macy's got his cowboy tie that he wears and everything. He just kind of slumped back in his chair and looked at it and he said, I can't, they won't let me. Same exact words. And it shocked me again because he said it right in front of all kinds of people. And I instinctively raised my hand up and I said, Bob, I think we deserve to know who those people are. Kind of slammed my fist on the table, didn't mean to, kind of bang, And he just sat there and I kind of looked around the room and all those assistant DAs were just sitting there looking at him. What's the boss going to say? What's he going to say? And I said it one more time. I said, Bob, who are they? And of course he never answered. He finally began to speak. Silence continued going for a long time. And he began to just talk about the case, and then we ended up getting into this conversation about it. He, of course, never said who they were. But in the course of talking to one of his assistant district attorneys, during the course of the bombing case, and other people, I think we know who they are. I think I found out because one of the district attorney's assistants had told me in a private conversation that Jamie Gould, Merrick, Garland, and another individual that were some of the top folks in the Justice Department in the Clinton administration were the ones that were handling this case from the very beginning. And they were the ones really making the decisions, along with conferences that they would have with Frank Keating and other people here in Oklahoma City and Oklahoma County. And they were basically telling people like Macy what to do from time to time. It's basically the good old boy network. That's always been around, always will be. And the bigger it gets, the worse it gets for you and me. Oh, yeah. So, I guess the problem, the way I see it today, is we have two governments in place right now. We've got the people that are still operating in the 8th grade civics mode, the general population that thinks that's the way it works, and a lot of the people that are in government, various government positions, whether it's from the lowest up to maybe high level. So I don't think very many of them that high really believe that, but some of them still, I think that it really works that way, like they learned in 8th grade civics. And then you've got this government that's been talked about by many government officials, many others, for a long time now, that we have such a great record of proofs of what really goes on, how things really work, and who's really pulling the strings behind the scenes. And what we've got to do is realize, and I know this is where preaching is required, realize that second government, that non-elected, unconstitutional government, even if they are office holders, are illegitimate. They're not our government. We owe nothing to them, and we need to expose those people. And we need to continue to wake up the rest of the people that we work with, that we see on a day-to-day basis. And I'm interested in finding out ways to do that. I want to know what you guys think.
As I recall, there were a couple of auxiliary deputies who heard one of our congressmen say that you knew this was going to happen. Congressman Seymour says, my question is pretty simple. He's just announced for governor.
anybody know about what Clark's talking about, Congressman Ernst Istook's involvement in the Oklahoma City bombing case? Well, I'll tell you about it. And by the way, he is supposedly going to announce for governor here real soon. Congressman Istook, well, to give you the background of the story, I got a call at the state capitol in the late summer of '97, and it was by an individual anonymously calling to want to know if essentially wanted to talk to them. They asked for information about government prior knowledge, that they knew the bombing was going to happen beforehand, and blah, 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 blah. And we had a short conversation about that. Didn't want to identify himself at the time. Said he had another colleague that they had some important information. They ended up calling me back. We ended up meeting with them. The story goes like this. The day of the bombing, when so many rescue people came to the site, began to help, many of those people were deputy reserve sheriffs, and two of them had worked together for a long time. Were good friends. They were on the northwest perimeter of the building, about 25 feet apart. And their job was to keep people from just coming in, taking pictures, taking artifacts, just generally getting in the way. And so here comes Congressman Ernst Istook, along with a well-known attorney here in Oklahoma City, Lana Tyree. And they pull up and they come walking up. Istook to one of the deputy reserve officers, and Lana Tyree beside him, she kind of walks up to the other one. They approached him and said, they started taking pictures. The attorney did, and one of the guys said, hey, you can't do that, don't take pictures. And she said, well, I'm with Congressman Istook. And he said, well, it doesn't matter, you can't take pictures. She said, well, the congressman just wanted a few pictures. Of course, he gave told him to go ahead and take some pictures, but don't take pictures of federal agents. In the meantime, Istook starts this conversation with the other guy. And they're standing there shoulder to shoulder. This deputy reserve officer had one of these big smoky hats on, looked like a highway patrolman, plus he was a big guy, big stocky guy. Had a yellow rain jacket on because it started raining a little bit, sprinkling, if you remember the day of the bombing later on that day. So he looked like a highway patrolman. Istook standing next to him, and they're talking about, this terrible tragedy. It was awful that happened. So many people lost their lives, that kind of conversation. And then Istook stopped and says, yeah, we knew this was going to happen. We had information that a radical Islamic fundamentalist group was going to do this, and we just blew it. That was almost the exact word you can read in the report. And this guy turns to me and said, excuse me, sir? Standing shoulder to shoulder. He said, excuse me? He said, yeah, repeated the same thing. He said, we had this information that this radical Islamic fundamentalist extremist group was going to do this, and we just blew it. And when he repeated it a second time, Istook looks at him and says, aren't you highway patrol? He thought he was talking to somebody that obviously felt like he could trust, because the highway patrol had some prior involvement, so the highway patrol did, in preparing for this surveillance of individuals that they were told about. And he said, no, just deputy reserve sheriff. I mean, parenthetically, it's like, no, I'm a lowly deputy reserve sheriff, which you just revealed this to. And it just goes, and he just say, thank you, see you later, and he just says, oh, just walk off. In the meantime, the attorney's over here talking to the other guy, that he tells her, well, yeah, go take some pictures, but, blah, blah. So they start just kind of shooting the ball. She says, yeah, I was over at Istook's office, and I found out in Representative Istook's office that they've known about this since April the 9th. They had some information that was, this group of radical whatever were going to do this. And he said, really? Yeah, blah, blah, blah. We'll talk about that. She ended up giving her business card. We'll give you some pictures of you. The congressman, they took pictures of all of them, the congressman. And so, here's our decision. Of course, he denied that. Now, these deputy reserve officers, some of you might remember this, a few, Mark does. That was in '97. We had their affidavits. We asked them what they wanted to do. They told us that all that time, for 2 years since the bombing happened, when they'd seen all these FBI agents interviewed in the newspaper and on TV and other government pronouncements, they thought they were going to do the right thing because they knew that there was prior knowledge because of that conversation. They knew that they were going to, eventually do the right thing because that's what they do, right? They're going to go after all the bad guys. And then 2 years go by and they heard them continually claim, no, there weren't any other people involved. No, there's not any Arabic or foreign terrorists involved. No, blah, 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 blah. And that's why they made the call to us. said that what they wanted to do is they wanted to provide this information publicly in a press conference. And so we helped accommodate that happen. We had this press conference in the middle of, I think it was January 15th of 98. And it was covered by every media, the main media in the state of Oklahoma. Even the Tulsa paper, all the Tulsa TV stations, all of the Oklahoma City TV stations, KDOK ran it live, except the Daily Oklahoma. The Daily Oklahoma was there, and they wrote, the gal wrote an article, but then the Daily Oklahoma didn't have a mention of it the next day or after that. So that's your wonderful Daily Oklahoma report. Decide what's good for us to read. And that's the great Congressman Ernest Isbell. Yeah, I'm kind of not voting. I'm not voting for it. I don't know how you guys are going to vote, but I'm not going to vote for it. Yes.
Yeah, I was wondering, I was reading a pamphlet talking about Timothy McVeigh's connection to a place called Element City, I think, north of here. I was wondering if you could give us any more information on that. I believe it was a Ku Klux Klan organization or some kind of convent.
Well, yeah, Element City, like Waco, has been called a compound. You know, like the government likes to call groups, probably like this group. They probably call this a compound or something. You know, and so Element City is just a group of people that maybe most of us, maybe all of us, wouldn't really agree with. We might not hang out with them for any reason, but they're just a bunch of people that have similar common beliefs. Now, some of them were pretty radical, but not all of them. And I wouldn't particularly want to hang out with those folks, but they had this little place in eastern Oklahoma, and it was called Element City. And most of them were, what I understand, Christian identity. And it probably was, there's no doubt over the years there were Ku Klux Klan, Aryan Nation, skinheads, and folks like that that also would go through there also. So on one hand, I don't leave the impression that I'm, you know, of that mindset by any means. I just learned to be very understanding and non-judgmental towards a lot of people, because if you're not very careful, you'll be thrown into a big category with everybody else, and you'll be a compound, you know, and you might get blown up or burned alive or something like that. So you had these folks in the compound of Elohim City, and Andy Strassmeyer, the West German, had ended up traveling around the United States, ended up in Elohim City, and he had become their security, what was his title, head of security.
Well, the FBI cut him up to be nothing more than a janitor, which is off the floor. He actually was a security guard.
Yeah. And so, I guess one of the important things about Elohim City is that there probably were more innocent people there than there were guilty people that had any knowledge, I mean, from a pure legal point of view, that had a pure knowledge, a knowledge of the Oklahoma City bombing at all, that it was going to take place. But you had Andy Strassmeyer. It's very important to understand. Strassmeyer was a German. He had a high ranking in the German military. His family was very well placed in German politics and in society. He was well connected. There's many other things I won't get into about Andy Strassmeyer. But here's Strassmeyer. His visa had run out. He was in the possession of firearms, which made it a felony anyway. Plus, my understanding is he was in possession of firearms that were illegal to have also, which I don't necessarily agree with that. But because of those things, before the Oklahoma City bombing, the ATF was getting ready to go bust him. And then McVeigh was in contact with him. So the FBI called off that sting operation, and then the Oklahoma City bombing happens. And then you would think, again, if it was us talking about this today, tonight, and some tragic event happened tomorrow, we have to just mention something about it. They probably want to call us all in, at least question us, because we're suspect. They didn't even go talk to Andy Strassmeyer. And they never went to talk to him. They let him leave the country and never questioned him at all. So, just more of the same from our government. That's about all I've got to say. Does anybody else have any other questions? I'd be happy to answer one more question if I answer a question, but I appreciate it being here. been marginalized, and if so, has it been more by the government or the media? What's the difference?
Had quite a struggle.
Yes.
Yes. So that you had quite a struggle from both.
Yeah, and I think, again, to continue on this theme of I think what we need to do is I think we have to be more, now there's variations on how to do this, but I think we have to be more in people's faces, in somebody's face, whether it's individuals, it's in institutions, it's politicians, and I don't mean just raising them absolute hell with them, all of that can be bad, can exclude that, but I'm talking about we need to be bold, because I think the times that we live in require it and dictate it. There's not much time left, it doesn't seem. Now, I don't happen to be one that thinks it's too late, it's over, there's nothing we can do. I don't believe that. Because maybe I just don't have enough sense to believe that. I just don't have, I don't have a sense of me that wants to give up. And I think that we don't know what tomorrow brings or what can happen tomorrow, so I think there is always hope, especially in a great country like this country is. But I think we need to be more bold. We need to be bold with people running for office, people that are in office, with our neighbors, our friends. And if that means, being kind of a little bit on the rude side, that's one thing. If it means being very respectful but being bold, I think that's what we need to be. And we're pussyfooting around with a lot of people.
Go ahead and step out of line.
Yeah. So, and the media and everyone else. Yes.
There's one novel approach to actually correcting the situation, or at least allowing people to be more prepared to meet it. And what I've done, what I'm attempting to do rather, is it only takes about $15,000 to $20,000 in order to set up a family of four with electricity, water, food, everything they need in order to survive independent of the system. So if you can convince people, and plus all those things can also generate wealth for people by taking electricity back into their profit. And so you can actually reach people from your pocketbooks in the system, as well as cut the power from the overlords, if you would. And I just find it's also a great community building process as well, because you create these networks of people and stuff. And so that's how we're doing it now.
That's a good idea. I also have to be a big believer that I think just everything that people are doing work together for freedom, to move us back towards more freedom. Some people are real critical of those people are doing the wrong thing over there and don't do this and don't do that. I don't believe in that. I think doing something is important. And, I hope that there could be some type of organization to an effort like this. There needs to be someone who can step forward and start, organizing people. Even if we all don't have to lead alike on most issues, there's a lot of things we do. And right now it's becoming very popular to say in a movement like this anymore. The issue is really down to two things: freedom or tyranny. Whether you're liberal, left, or that, you're right now about freedom or not. We're not having freedom. And that's what we need to join together on. So I appreciate being here.
Charles, if I may interject, thank you so much. It sounded like what Charles had just mentioned, and there's some of them flew introduced, and thank you so much for coming by. We appreciate you traveling all that way. This two-page leaflet that we have is just use it as a template, as an example. Lisa and myself and Ron Cross, who's our director of security, we're going to hold this a second. We tried to accomplish that not only doing a market research to see if our film would be viable. Is anybody really interested in this? Why should we put all the time and effort to do it if nobody wants to buy it? We found out of 2,369 leaflets we handed out over the course of 3 months, at least one day a weekend, most of the weekends from April 19th to July 31st, we only had 10 negative responses. That's a resounding thumbs up. So, I'm trying to correlate that as an example. It really doesn't take much to do it. You just get out there and ask these people, get the information in front of them. And it was unbelievable. We had people crying, both male and female. The emotions were saying, we're tired of being lied to. That's what it's all about. So I'll be quiet. Any other comments?
Yes, I was just going to follow up with what Charles was saying as far as organizing. I don't know how, I talked to several of you that went to the anti-warfare last weekend, and I was one of the organizers of that, and we do a weekly protest at 32nd and Classen at 5 o'clock, for the rush hour traffic to go by. So I wanted to invite you guys to come out. Oh, Tuesday, I'm sorry. Once a week on Tuesday. And what we're trying to do is get enough people out there to where we can dispatch different teams to different locations. And this keeps this in the forefront of people's minds, what we have to say, because they're not going to see it on TV. They're not going to hear it, on the radio, well, some of it on the radio, but basically they see it in their car driving by on the way home from work. They see these signs, Bush sucks. And it kind of goes, hey, most of them go, yeah, he does, yeah. But so anyways, we don't actually have a sign that says that, but it's just an example of it. I do have one that says Bush lied, and I have one that says, I can't repeat it. It says, F yourself, Dick Cheney. So we have some radical signs out there. But anyways, you're welcome to come out. We do have, most of it is the war protest signs. So yes, it's antiwarfare.com, and it's spelled F-A-I-R. So it's antiwarfare.com, with no W's. Okay, anyways, I just wanted to mention that. If anybody wants to talk about organizing a team on the south side of town or any other place, come up and visit with me later. I'll be happy to fill you in, okay? All right. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Charles, Chris, I really appreciate it. We're going to take a short break, about 10 minutes, and come right back with Jack Blood. Really excited to have him here. He's from Austin, Texas, nationally syndicated, and my boyfriend Rasta is going to be introducing the band and everybody else from here on out. Thank you guys. Okay, you guys. Sorry. I didn't do this at the end of the last segment, but I forgot. And so the guys over at Oklahoma City Bombing Investigation Committee have autographed a hardback copy of this book, and they want to auction it off. So we are going to start the bids at $50 just to kind of help donate to this project here and everything that a lot of people have worked really hard on. So does anybody want to bid past $50 or above? I'm not an auctioneer, so you'll have to bear with me here. It's $50 or above. Bush calls 55. Anybody else? Going once. Going twice. Sold. Flip. All right. Appreciate that. Okay, Rasta is going to do a proper introduction for Jack Blood here, and so I'll let him take it.
Still on. Hi, everyone. My name is Steve. Where's everybody at? Are people still outside? We gotta get them in Jack Blood, no? Well, like I said, my name is Steve Mayer. I'm from Austin, Texas. Jenny told me she was putting something like this together. I kind of had to jump into help. In Austin, we're also known as Resistance Central when it comes to uncovering government propaganda and things of that nature. And so I know Jack Blood here locally. I do my own radio show over the internet on the Rear Radio Network. He's been one of our foremost supporters in that. And so when I saw this opportunity, I asked Jack if he could come down or come up actually to Oklahoma to do this. And he said, yeah. So I want everybody to give a hand for Jack Blood here, syndicated radio host. Okay. All right, I wrote a really wonderful speech that I've just thrown on the floor. That's pretty much my MO. Generally what I do is I embarrass
embarrass myself and insult the audience, and then we get going. So I came up here to Oklahoma, and anyway, I want to thank Jenny and Rasta and Mr. Key and all the rest, man. These great bands who are here, because I think this is exactly what we need a lot more of. People, we do this a lot in Austin, Texas, and people get a little bit bored. They come and they get some dry speaking, and yeah, there's some really good information, but people want to go have fun too. So I commend these bands for coming down here and playing, and everybody that came down and saw the bands. What do you see? Well, you're going to. All governments are murderers and liars. That's what Bill Hicks said. And it's true. We can make a lot of excuses, and it's the shadow government, and these guys don't know what they're doing, and it's a lot of blatant incompetence. But how many times do we have to hear that it's incompetence before a little bell goes off in our head and we realize that it's planned? So I'll give you a couple of examples. I think this is a pretty good example right here. Tony Lake, head of NSA, Arlen Specter, Bill Clinton, got together and decided that they wanted to put some heat on the Patriots. They wanted to put some heat on the militias. How would they do that? And I think we saw the example of how they did it. Now you have become the terrorists. This is when we're trying to figure out who the enemy is, who the terrorist is. We have to somehow get from the drug war, there's more drugs, better drugs, cheaper drugs, better drugs than ever before, to the Cold War. We had to go from the Cold War to something. What was it going to be? It was going to be the war on terrorists. They had it all figured out. So this is they call this a Conspirathon 2005. And the dictionary defines a conspiracy, and this is just a terrible word. It's like saying you're a liberal. I mean, you might as well just go to hell now. You and Hillary Clinton and the horse you rode in on. But conspiracy simply means two or more people getting together to plan something that's illegal. Now, Tom DeLay, who is the majority congressman and not Speaker of the House, but majority, we all know who Tom DeLay is, was just charged with conspiracy. So I guess conspiracies do exist. And I don't think it's really something to be afraid of. A lot of people told me, they said, Jack, you're coming down here to Conspirathon. That's a terrible word. We've got to get away from that word. But that's what it is. Let's just face facts. I know we're in this newspeak Orwellian era where words don't really mean what they say and don't say what they mean. But ultimately, there are a lot of conspiracies going on. They've always gone on. And if we don't do something to reveal the conspiracies, then we're just sheep for the slaughter. Well, isn't that just the plan? I originally wrote a piece called Brave New World Order for you tonight. And I'm just going to kind of get through some burned out synopsis here and potentially lay it out for you. And I've been reading a lot of Aldous Huxley. Now, Aldous Huxley wrote Brave New World. Wrote it back in the 30s. Wrote Brave New World Revisited in the 50s. And here's what he said. There was going to be a pharmacological society where the people don't know they're in prison. They don't know they're slaves, but they're slaves. And they're happy. They're begging to be slaves. And then I see, after 9/11, then I see the victims, the widows of 9/11 with the candles lit and at the White House begging to take away their freedoms. Begging on TV. And these are the sympathetic ones. These aren't, I've interviewed several of the victims on my program, including Chick Burlingame's sister, Deborah. He was the one who supposedly flew into the Pentagon. We all remember that on 9/11. She's the bad one. She spoke at the Republican National Convention. I attended both the conventions, covered those. But the good ones, the ones that we're supposed to sympathize with, who want justice, who empower the 9/11 omission, the CFR whitewash, they were with their candles lit at the White House begging, please take away our freedoms. Take them away, please, protect us. Now this is the government, and I don't want to just single out the United States, because I love my country, but this is a government among many who have a long history where nothing has worked. Nothing ever has worked. Not one program has ever worked. You can't find one. You name one, please. Which is the program that you funded that works, that actually helps people? No one can really answer that question. After, I'd say, at least 100 years, this is what we've come to. And this is the same with governments all around the world. You remember when you were in school and you had to do the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag, to the United States of America, and to the democracy for which it stands. Oh, wait, what happened? It's a republic. A democracy is two wolves and a lamb deciding what to have for lunch. Yeah, it's the lamb. That's right. Right now we have an alien nation. We have 40 million illegal aliens. That's the best count I think people can come up with. And I was at the Republican convention. I watched little girls, 14-year-old white girls, who were put up by their father or their aunt or whatever, holding signs up for the media, Viva Bush. Because they're pandering to that vote, because they think this is a democracy. It's very simply a limited democracy. It's a republic. It's based on a rule of law, but when they don't follow the law, what recourse do we really have? Well, my Brave New World speech goes into a number of issues, including, are we in an Orwellian time? Is it 1984, or is it the Brave New World? Is it the Brave New World Order? And the difference is this, that Huxley, whose brother was Julian Huxley, the first head of UNESCO. UNESCO is the education social arm of the United Nations. These are the people President Bush has happily endorsed that write in our school books that we're not Americans, we're international citizens. Remember, it takes a village. So Julian Huxley, first head of UNESCO, probably leaked a good amount of information to his brother Aldous Huxley, and realized that it wasn't going to be 1984. 1984 is really simply, you have Newspeak, you have groupthink, you certainly have a lot of the symptoms of 1984, but it's the difference between rewarding people for good behavior and punishing people for bad behavior. So when you look around, what do you see? A couple of people get punished. And we all think, that could be me. That could be me. And we saw down in New Orleans, they couldn't even, martial law in the United States, they couldn't even have martial law in New Orleans. I don't care how many foreign NATO troops and Russian troops and Mexican troops for the first time in 150 years, armed Mexican troops were up in this country. I get sidetracked sometimes, but I'll always come back to my point. 5 years ago, we had Marines with fake guns down in Mexico to pay tribute to a fallen Mexican who was fighting in one of our many wars, in the many theaters that the Project for a New American Century talks about. And there was a riot. And a couple of those Marines almost got killed just for toy guns being on their borders. But they couldn't enforce martial law even in New Orleans. They can't enforce 1984. They can only make this work if you agree to it. And you're going to agree to it because there's a little carrot with a stick. And you're going to be given choices. Would I like to be rewarded and eat and have some water? Or would I like to be in a detention camp somewhere in Philadelphia or on a chartered plane being tortured off in Jordan somewhere? Americans. But it's not just people in America. In fact, actually, more people in America are awake than probably anywhere in the world. And we see evidence of that all the time. We have tens of thousands of listeners to our radio show. When I started 4 years ago, I had a few dozen. And they were hard to come by. And you'd lose 6 and get 1, but something magical happened. People start to realize that I can't trust my government. It goes beyond questioning authority. Fuck authority. Fuck them. You know, I mean, these are the people that claim they're talking to God. That God tells them that they need to go kill Muslims. That God tells them they need to come out with the Patriot Act. Now, in case you think I'm a liberal, please don't look at me like that. I don't like the looks of some of your faces, feeling like a pork chop here in front of Rush Limbaugh. Why do you think? How do you get that name Rush, by the way? Yeah. They used the Patriot Act on Rush Limbaugh. No, I'm not a liberal. Facts and batteries, and I'm looking at these great banners here. Well done. And I'm remembering that Clinton put out the crime bill. The crime bill was basically the Patriot Act. And you know who was horrified by that? There was a senator, I think he was a senator, was he a congressman? Now I forget. He's from Missouri. He liked to collect Nazi memorabilia. I guess we can only guess that he was down in his basement parading around in front of his mirror. His name was John Ashcroft. He was horrified by this crime bill. Horrified. Couldn't stand for it. How could they forget? And guess who invented Homeland Security? The giant bureaucracy that now runs the INS, FEMA, more departments than I can count in the next hour. You know, it's Bill Clinton, our hero. Well, you know, the problem with Clinton was that they just stuck a blue dress on him. It's the same blue dress, that's all it was, and he was maligned, and that's, you know, partisan politics. No. They had a lot more on Bill Clinton. That's all they needed. They have something on everybody. You don't get up the food chain unless they've got something on you. It is a giant pyramid scheme, and it's, I guess it's no coincidence that there are pyramids and owl buildings going up all over the country. We know who's in charge. It's a giant pyramid scheme. You know what a pyramid scheme is? You pay into it, and you get paid back based on how many people you can suck into the scheme. How many people you can con into going into the system. And that's exactly what we have. Everybody's waiting to get paid. Everybody's trying to get everybody in. Everybody's trying to move up the pyramid. And we are the cornerstones of that pyramid, like it or not. Now, we can talk tonight about, you know, Einstein said that you can't change anything by using the same methods that got you in trouble in the first place. We can talk about that. We can talk about completely changing our paradigm and taking a whole new way. But right now, we're the cornerstones of the pyramid, holding up the capstone and the pyramid scheme. Willingly. All right, so basically, when I'm talking about the brave New World Order, and I don't know if there's anything new about it now, but what we're getting at here is about 100 years ago, science really caught up with modern slavery. It's as simple as that. And the sciences of the mind were born. And the Tavistock Institute was born, and all the institutions of the tentacles that spawn out of the globalists, banking money, and out of the United Nations, all spawned all over the place. You know, the Tavistock Institute is Stanford. It's MIT. It's just about every educational institution that you've ever heard of. You ever heard of the Tavistock Institute? So the guys have come out on record and they've just simply said, look, we figured out that if we let you think for yourselves, you'll screw us. I don't remember, I have some wonderful quotes in a little notebook, it's in my pocket. But somebody said, doesn't matter who now, that if you allow a man to think for himself, a man or a woman, you allow them to think for themselves, they'll inevitably come to the conclusion that all governments are liars and murderers. All governments are not only liars and murderers and despots and thieves, but they're intolerable. So the sciences of the mind were born. And how are we able to really get people to stop thinking for themselves and start thinking for us. We have to control all public opinion. So we have to infiltrate every educational orifice in the world. I think Oxford is a really great example. I don't know if you've heard of a Rhodes Scholar, but Bill Clinton was a Rhodes Scholar. Thank you very much. Clinton was a Rhodes Scholar. Cecil Rhodes was the patron of being a Rhodes Scholar. He was the patron of Oxford, and they taught global domination from a British point of view. This is where the Tavistock Institute was born. This is where the United Nations, or the League of Nations was born. This is where all the little plans were hatched. The CFR came out of the Royal Institute of International Affairs, which came out of the Round Table under Cecil Rhodes. He fought the Boer War. He took. I mean, back before it was really even fashionable to steal and kill throughout Africa, steal all their resources and kill everybody, he was doing it long before it became trendy. Bill Clinton is a Rhodes Scholar. General Clark, who ran for president, stalking horse for the Clinton power brokers, also a Rhodes Scholar. So they had to get to the education system. You've heard of this No Child Left Behind. Do you know what it means? It means no child's going to be left behind. That's not good. I'd like my child to be left behind. Thank you very much. What's the beginning of this new plan? This is a plan that had been going for a long time that was put into law literally hours after Bush was given his mandate. The will of the people, in which will of the people. Is that not bad? I have a mandate.
Are you going against people's mandate?
Right. The will of the people. Is that not bad? I'm from Texas. Everything you say is a lie. You've been busted for insider trading, drunk driving, cocaine. You've been AOL. Barely a C student with all the help that you got, and you're leader of the free world.
Texas booger sugar. Texas booger sugar.
All right? The sciences of the mind. Jose Delgado, a major player like Ewan Cameron and others, they did MK Ultra. They used the 60s rebellion for their own private experimentation into mind control. We got what we paid for. That hit acid was $3, and I bought a $3 revolution. Jose Delgado got in front of Congress in '76 and just said flat out to the congressmen, they just sat and listened and took notes. We can't allow people to think for themselves. We can't do that. And he had all kinds of really neat little toys, cattle prods, and implantable little things in your head that would make your ear explode if you went against the grain. Just this insane Mendela torture science lab, and yet he's up in front of Congress giving a compelling argument about how we can't let the people think for themselves. It's too stupid. Watching one of the talking heads on TV today, he agrees. You know who that was? It was Walter Cronkite. The people are stupid. Don't let them elect anybody. Don't give them any power. They're too stupid. Now his solution is to educate. More education. More money in education. No child left behind. Going back to the New Freedom Initiative, it simply says that we're going to psychologically test every child in the country. And eventually we'll get to the parents and the grandparents. If they don't meet our testing standards, we will drug them. And it's a good thing we have good connections. We own the pharmaceutical cartels. I have an interview, I think it's next week, with one of the whistleblowers from the pharmaceutical cartels from the medical establishment, who will blow my listeners' minds with some of the payouts that have been given and the death that's been given. Man, we stood up when this came down to Texas. This is going state by state. You gotta have somebody to watch what they're putting in the bills. Let's slip in a little thing here. Charles, you know this. You know, it'll be new playground equipment. Psychologically test and drug your children. $1,000 for every home. Psychologically test and drug your children. Kill the firstborn. So we had people reading this in Texas. Science of the mind. A lot of very good people. And it was an interesting approach because we had some establishment people with us, some doctors who had not sold their souls to the ADA, AMA, any of those alphabet agencies. And we had people who were our mouthpieces talking to the governor, talking to the congressman in Texas. And then we had people like me who were on the radio urging people all over the world to inundate them with calls and say we would not stop calling, we would not leave them alone until they drummed this out of the particular bill we were trying to fight it. Yes, stop the calls. You know, this is what they tell us. Science is of the mind. Brave New World Order. This is what they tell us. You can't fight City Hall. Where did that come from? Because when I go to City Hall, there's like one guy sitting there. And they say, okay, we're going to put a new stop sign up over here and some parking meters over here. Anybody object? Joe sticks his hand up. I got to go to the bathroom. All right. No parking meter in your neighborhood. I mean, that's literally what happens at city halls all around the country. When they try to push the Patriot Act on us, all of us, I think it was 450 cities around the country, towns, cities, came alive. We had 400 people packed into the Providence City Hall when I was up there. Unanimous vote. Huge victory? No. A moral victory, yes. Not a real victory because the Patriot Act is federal. They don't really tell you that, but do a little homework, you find out. But the point is that they're trying to tell you you can't fight City Hall. They're trying to tell you that you're too stupid to think for yourself. They're trying to tell you that you can't take care of your community. In fact, they're trying to tell you don't talk to your neighbor, he could be with Al-Qaeda. Don't talk to your neighbor, he could be Timothy McVeigh. Be very suspicious. Report your neighbor. I heard some yelling in the backyard. I think I'm going to CPS right now. There could be some kind of violence going on, some domestic violence. Oh my God, honey, you gotta go. Call me back, call. And in DP, you're convicted of a domestic violence charge. Happy forever. Ever. It's worse than robbing a freaking bank. So all I have to do, if I don't like you, Ross, I just get on the phone and say you're beating your girlfriend. And you're done, pal. All right, now I have some of my detractors here, and they're going to use this against me. But I mean, this is the sick, twisted nation of snitches that we've turned out to be. We ride on the highway. You see suspicious behavior? Call 1-800 Al-Qaeda. Yeah, that guy, he was going 50 in a 65-mile-an-hour zone. He said, okay, that's a lot of power. And William S. Burroughs, I don't know if any of you read some of the classic literature, but William S. Burroughs was talking about this in the 50s. They'll use the drug war to take away all of our rights. And we are a nation of snitches. We are ugly Americans. And I don't really happen to believe that last part. I don't think we're ugly Americans. I think we are basically what we reflect. We are what we have enabled. So when it gets down to the nitty-gritty, it's not Charles King's fault. It's not Ron Paul's fault, who I spoke with last month. I was honored to speak with him. It's not even President Bush's fault. It's not even David Rockefeller's fault. It's not even the Rothschild banking family's fault. It's our fault. We did it. Okay, now that we understand, and I'm not saying it's us because, the torch has been passed and, we had a very placated 50s. Take a slow line. Get over it. Take a Valium. Valium? You don't like Valium? Take an Axel. All right. We have blue, yellow, red, pink. Call me said about it. So ultimately, we did this to ourselves. We're responsible. I mean, what kind of a country do we live in when it's admitted in the New York Times that the 1993 World Trade Center bombing was a sting operation? Yeah, it's on tape. It's not a conspiracy theory, it's a freaking conspiracy. It was a sting, and then the sting went wrong, and, we're incompetent, and we blew it, and they blew us up, and they blew us up again and again and again. In fact, I heard rumors down here today that some kind of a bomb went off here in Oklahoma at a sporting event. Anybody hear that?
I was there.
Because it sure wasn't on the news. They were talking about how the evil terrorists bombed Indonesia and Bali again. That's why we're fighting these wars, so they'll go bomb Bali and not here. Not Balis. So, it is a war for your mind. It's just that simple. Operation Mockingbird, founded in the 60s. Simple CIA plan. I mean, again, it's all about what's good for the collective. What is good for the collective? iRobot. Anybody see that? Movie iRobot with Will Smith? He didn't like technology, and I don't blame him. But the robots were given a simple plan. Don't kill humans, whatever happens. Don't kill humans. Help humans. And then the robots decided, the hive mind, the collective, decided that in order to help man, they had to kill man. This man's stupid, man will have all these wars, and man doesn't know what's good for him. Well, our global elite think exactly the same thing. They believe what they're doing is good. They believe that controlling your mind, the minds of your children, controlling your education, controlling your entire life is good. Yeah, divine right to rule. Divine right to rule. And they have the divine right to rule. They have no respect for you. They are rewarded for killing Donald Rumsfeld with aspartame, with weapons of mass destruction, selling low-water nuclear reactors to North Korea with ABB. All of the wars and the several administrations. It's got to be one of the top killers in the world. I mean, forget about Ted Bundy, Donald Rumsfeld. And he's rewarded. They're rewarded for killing. They're rewarded for taking your mind. It's the pyramid scheme, where the more they suck in, the more people they get into the pyramid scheme, the more they're rewarded. It's just that simple. I like to say on my show that your dreams are waiting for you to come true. Your dreams are waiting for you to come true. And what's stopping us from pursuing our dreams, our life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, higher consciousness, one of the most important things? That's what your mind is. Your mind isn't a calculator. Your mind isn't for grocery shopping or jogging or building hot rods. All those things are good. But your mind is to obtain higher consciousness, and that's what they're stealing. That's what they're stealing with propaganda. That's what they're stealing with innate little codes in the information. That's what they're stealing when the CIA openly works with Hollywood on every film. I mean, when I get into these talks, I can literally just shoot off of one idea and keep going. But I want to keep this somewhat brief and just make a salient point that our dreams are waiting for us to come true. And the only thing that's stopping us is fear. That's it. Why are some people angry? Well, they have controlled belief systems. Those belief systems are like hypnosis. That's why we call it waking up. They're under heavy hypnosis. They are in the cult of the all-seeing eye. Put it on top of the pyramid. Right? And I don't want to, look, I'm not here to lecture anyone. I just have a message. I go around, this is actually the first time I've ever been to Oklahoma. I've been in every other state in the country. This is the last place I ended up. I saved the best for last. But we support the corporate media. We buy their magazines. We pay for cable. We buy credit cards. mortgages and second mortgages and third mortgages. We have 2.2 cars. We don't blink when they ask us for more money for other wars. I mean, we've really dug our own grave here. So what is the solution? And I'm not talking about the problem reaction solution because I know what their solution is. They told us. It's a new world order. And it ain't new. Economically, it's done. Economically, there are no more borders. There is no Bill of Rights. There's no Magna Carta. There's nothing left to protect you. I mean, you can just say it. You're done. Economically, you have a global government. The only thing is I'm not satisfied with that. They want microchips. I mean, I have documents with me. Talking about the Matrix. How they learn how to turn us into batteries. Scientific reports in major scientific magazines. The carbon, the heat in your body makes a good battery. Maybe that's all you're worth. Bill Bennett got on his radio show and said that if we had more abortion for the poor, we'd have less crime. I mean, that's the level of insanity that we have to deal with. But so what is the solution? And the solution isn't one you're going to like. Because it isn't, go have some meetings and then it catches fire and there's 100 monkey syndrome and everybody in the world wakes up and we take the world back.
What is the solution?
You're not going to like it. You're not going to like it because basically the solution is we have to teach people again not to trust the government. We have to teach people again to think for themselves. We have to teach people to stand up for themselves and their family and for you. So I'm not doing this for myself. If this is self-interest, I can do pretty well for myself. I know. I was Abby Hoffman in a former life. I'm also a communist and a liberal. And I'm with Al-Qaeda. But, so the solution is that one at a time, maybe a generation at a time, we've got to quit just trusting the government, trusting the media. No, we all think that's very simple. But with that, there's action. I always hear this very trite, tired phrase, freedom isn't free. Okay, that's true. But let me put it another way to you. Freedom isn't given, freedom is taken. That's just how it is. If we're going to sit and wait for Bush and Cheney and Ashcroft and Gonzales and Comrade Chertoff and all the rest to be punished and hung in some kind of a Jeffersonian tribunal in front of the White House, I'm sorry, but that's not going to happen. It's not realistic. All the revolutions were fixed. Not one revolution took the world back. Not one revolution took their country back. Are we going to learn? Did we learn anything from the 60s? So what we have to do is we have to go knock on our neighbor's door. Hi, I'm Jack Blood. And I love my freedom. Do you? Hey, let's have a meeting. Let's go to City Hall. Let's teach our children that. Let's stop indoctrinating our children and let them be free. Let them be the creatures that they were put on earth to be. Let's stop putting our children in public schools. Let's stop pounding our credit cards. Let's stop taking out second and third mortgages. Let's buy a car cash and not on credit because we need a better car than the Joneses or the Smiths. If our lawn gets 3 inches high, fuck it. You got people in Austin that come and measure your lawn. I kid you not. I mean, no. Even my lawn's not free. But ultimately, this is a lifelong struggle for all of you in this room. For your children, for your grandchildren, their children and grandchildren. This will never stop. We have to come, I understand, we've been a little spoiled, little pampered. We are lucky to be American. Up to this point, we have a modicum of freedom left. We have the ability, still somewhat, to speak out, to redress our grievances. We still are able to obtain and keep some of these rights. We have the most important ability of all, and that's to keep people out of our heads. So we can't go up to people and go, it's going to take 2 hours, but here's what happened on 9/11. And if you got another hour, I'll tell you what happened in Oklahoma City, 1993, Waco, Gulf of Tonkin, the Maine, the Lusitania. I mean, we can't even bother wasting time with that anymore. We've got to get through to people. They are trying to take your mind. And we got to get going. Simple as that. So you can make some flyers. You can get to know your neighbors. You can prepare so you don't get caught under the federal umbrella like the people in the Gulf Coast in New Orleans. You protect yourself. You can do all that, but I'm telling you, and I don't want to, I'm not here to rain on your parade, but this is going to take forever. We're going to have to work at this our entire lives. We're going to have to dedicate ourselves to it. And yeah, man, we can have some fun. A couple of bands here playing. I like to go out. See, I used to be in a rock and roll band. All that's left is the shoes and the tattoos. But we can have fun. We can enjoy ourselves. We don't have to completely commit ourselves. I mean, my life is all of this. I don't have a regular job. I don't read literature. I don't paint paintings anymore. And I'm really impressed with some of the artwork I'm seeing here. No, I've dedicated myself to it, and that's what I've chosen to do. I'm 42 years old. I don't know if I have much time left, honestly, the way I've lived my life. But I have to dedicate myself to it. You don't have to do it. You just have to do one thing. You just have to go to City Hall. You just have to do one little thing. And try to get your neighbor to do one little thing. And remind them that this isn't something that is going to be easily fixed. And if we do that, if we constantly do that, maybe in a year or a generation, we'll see some real people with actual souls involved in government, anxious to represent you because they're so proud that you stood up for this great country and this great heritage. And by leading by example, and this is a country, this is you, all of you, you're an example. People watch you. Man, I really thought that I was a rebel, but you know what? I was mind controlled. When I was a young man, I was mind controlled. I thought I was a rebel, man. I was underground. I've read all the books. I've read all the research. I knew about all this stuff. But what did I do? I didn't do anything. So, I mean, if I can end on a note, I end with my show, and I want to take a few questions from anybody that hasn't on any subject. But I always end my program with, be bold and mighty forces will come to your aid. And that simply means, don't wait for someone else to do it. You got to do it. And don't expect, that the world's going to be taken back and we're going to be running the world. Let me tell you, most of the patriots I know, I wouldn't let them run, a business, let alone the world. But we can scare them. We can put fear in their hearts. We can turn the fear around on them. And I think it was Jefferson that says that the people that fear their government have tyranny, and a government that is afraid of the people brings liberty. And it's just that simple, but it is something we have to work at all the time. And you have to protect yourselves. You have to constantly be on the lookout because a little tiny nanobug will be planted in you, and it's too late. I often say I won't be cold, I won't be hurted. And that's what they have planned. I'll make this last point. In Hurricane Rita was coming in. They had to put this out on the news. We want people to write their social security numbers on their forearms so we can identify the bodies. Where do you think that's leading? Again, years ago we were talking about everyone getting a microchip, and I could blow you away if you've done any research in that. I could blow you away with what those things can do these days. They can control your emotions. They can make you violent. They can kill you dead. They can GPS you. All your information is on that. Remember the permanent record? Well, this is your permanent record. So that's the future. It is going to be a brave new world order. It isn't going to be 1984. You won't even know it happened. And the only way to stop it now is to start telling other people, very simply, think for yourself, stand up for yourself. We can fight City Hall. And it's just that simple. So I trashed my whole speech. I winged it. And I appreciate you all hearing me out here. I do a radio program 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central Time. GCNlive.com. My website is jackblood.com. I interview governors, senators, congressmen, generals. We put them in the hot seat. We ask them the really hard questions, the questions they're not going to get asked really anywhere else. And they let little things slip out because they can't help themselves. All right, so I want to thank you all for coming down, and I'm really anxious to see the band. Real quick, if anybody has any questions about any topic whatsoever, I'll do my best.
Okay, there's one thing that we all see every day that officially does not exist. And as far as I can tell, it started after I was born. That's chemtrails. You know? And so, I mean, if we were looking for motivation and cause, I mean, that's something that should be easily provable to show why.
It's not easily provable. In fact, no one's proved it yet. So, I don't know if that's what you need. I mean, everybody's looking for the magic bullet, man. The magic bullet is, again, you just standing up for yourself. God, I know it sucks on a Friday night. You have to go down to City Hall, have to go down and make sure they don't put toll roads up all over the place. Your freeways are really free. But you gotta do it. It's your responsibility. If you don't, I mean, look where we are. Look how fast we got here. Brzezinski said, between two ages, this is his prophecy, besides we need a new Pearl Harbor and all that, which we got. He said that in the future there'll be a technotronic era. It'll be ruled by a few elite who are unrestrained by morals. And you think of Bohemian Grove, and he knew what he was talking about. That's it. And that's why this is the most important time in history. Yeah, people have said that, I guess people said that back around the year zero. It's the end of the world. It's the most important time in history. But I'm telling you, this generation, the time we live in now, will go down in history. This is the transition of technology. The technology enslaves you. That's what I'm trying to talk to you about tonight. Sciences of the mind, technology. It enslaves you. This is the most important time. Your kids, your grandkids will ask you, what did you do? This time will be looked at, in my opinion, is the time when, put up or shut up, when the time when we lost. This time will be looked at almost as the Revolutionary War here in this country. This is the time, man. It's because of technology. That's why. Any other questions?
I just got started out with a Ben Franklin quote. Fox is two wolves and a lamb voting on what's for dinner. You know that the quote goes on after that.
Yes.
Okay. Liberty is
a
the
well-armed
sheep, okay, contesting the vote.
Yeah.
So, from the Libertarian Party point of view, you know, well-armed means well-armed.
Well, and I don't know, we don't want to get into a long thing about voting here. Obviously, we've got electronic voting. We've lost the ability to even vote. But I mean, when you've got two skull and bones, Eastern establishment types running cousins, and they were cousins. And they were both related to Charlemagne and Vlad the Impaler. They were bragging about the fact that they were related to Vlad the Impaler in mainstream news. They thought that was kind of funny. Ralph Nader, his lawyer, was also Skull and Bones. I don't know how many people knew that. He had to kick him off when that was found out. Ralph Nader, who will tell you that the corporations are taking over and we all need to be good socialists, invest in all the very companies he tells you not to invest in. And there were so many stalking horses in the last presidential campaign that it would take me another hour just to tell you about that. So we don't have any choices. We do have choices in local government, though. Federal elections, man, I don't know, it might be a write-off. We got to work at that, but local elections, we can get something done. Anybody else?
Yeah, I have one question. You said that, you talked about technology and stuff like that. You said, like, basically, I mean, like the vitality of mankind has been basically compromised by the progression of technology, how dependent we are on so many things, right? What I'm saying is, like,
I wasn't even talking about dependency, but that's certainly a
well,
good fact as well.
I asked the gentleman who spoke before you. I mean, my big question is this. I mean, and it's the whole thing. It seems like every little hole there is that they plug. You know what I mean? There's no solution. No, not even a semi-passive solution to change things. You know what I mean? That basically, regardless of what we do, how much effort we put in, and what kind of waves or current or any kind of ripples we put in anything at all will actually change anything. You know, I mean,
well, no, that's not true because I just gave you one quick example today about how we challenged the new Freedom Initiative in Texas and got it drummed out. We also, I could run down a number of other lists. We got 9 new pro-gun laws in the last 6 months. And locally in your community, you can change things. Can you change things?
I understand all that. The only thing I'm saying is like the action made a difference. I mean, our country's founded on revolution. The only thing, I mean, do you really think that there's an actual civil way to change things that's actually ever going to work? That's not my only question. I'm not trying to be that.
Well, here's the problem is that the alternative isn't going to work. I don't know what alternatives there are. I do know one thing is that you keep doing the same thing over and over again expecting different results. You are insane. And for us to constantly, get on the internet or whatever we're going to do and say, this will be the thing that will bring down the administration and give the government back to the people is delusional. So what are we going to do? We have to start with the molecular level almost and just change our neighborhood. It's just your responsibility to change your neighborhood. You don't have to worry about Texas or Seattle. You have to change your neighborhood.
I totally respect.
They can't. Listen to me. They cannot come into your neighborhood and take it over if you say no. They can't go into your neighborhood can you see this splashed all over the New York Times? Whole neighborhood arrested and sent to detention camp and blown up. They can't do that. In fact, it's all an illusion. It is an illusion, and all you really have is your house and your neighborhood. That's it.
I didn't mean to disrespect you like that.
No, I don't take it.
I realize, you dedicate your whole life, I admire that totally, and the only thing is, my whole life, I've completely and totally been this absolutely, just, I don't know, the dead end, and
okay, that only be Sabbath, don't you think?
Yeah.
I can't do anything, so why do anything at all?
I don't mean that. I'm just saying, to be realistic. I don't mean pessimistic or anything.
Well, I'm trying to be realistic, but I'm just saying this is really the foundation of apathy. It's too big. There's nothing other than an armed revolution. We know an armed revolution is probably going to fail, and we're going to play right into their hands. What are we supposed to do?
They snuffed out the whole globe.
So I've watched changes being done. I've watched communities being protected, and I'm telling you that hey, look, if you're expecting something to be better next year, maybe that isn't realistic. I think, honestly, it might take a generation to do it. It's got to start somewhere. It really has to start somewhere, and we can hold people accountable. We have more people, but, here's where we're going right now. I'll make a little prediction. Here's where we're going right now. We hate Bush so much. We're in Iran or we're in Syria. God forbid we're at war with China or something. Then in 2008, we elect Hillary Clinton. Okay? Look, 15 million people voted for Karen. So I don't know how much you expect to change in a few years. I'm not just singling you out. I'm talking to myself. I'm talking to everybody. But ultimately, if you trace Bush back and just start with Reagan, you got 8 years of Bush. You got 4 years of Bush with Bush. You got another 8 years of Bush with Clinton. And I can make my case on that. You got another 8 years of Bush with Bush Jr. And then you got maybe another 8 years of, that's like 50 friggin' years. Right? So look, I understand that people are apathetic. I understand that people are frustrated, and I don't want to stop people from looking for cold fusion. If you can find cold fusion, go out and chase it down and make it happen, please. And tell me about it, because I'll help you. But the reality is that number one, it's pure mind control. And number two, we have to start somewhere, and let's start in our communities. Anybody else? I want to hear this band.
You were talking about how the only choices that we had in the last election were skull and bone. Well, you just now visited Oklahoma, so I would point out to you that by law it really was just skull and bones here. Every other state had at least 4 choices.
Right.
Oklahoma had just skull and bones. So one small thing that can be done right here in Oklahoma to give more choice is to contact your state legislators, go down there to their office, make an appointment with them, and say change the stupid law so that we can have more choice on our ballot.
Yeah, that's right. I'm a huge believer that something is better than nothing. Anything is better than nothing, and I can testify that works. I mean, they say calling Congress doesn't work. I don't know if it works when you call Washington, D.C. or not. I've heard some vague little shadows of stories about that, but it does work when you call your local congressman, because you'd be really surprised to find out. I don't know, Charles, if you can testify to this, but not very many people call, because they think that it doesn't make an effect. So if you can organize, this is a really great event, and this event should grow. You should be doing this every month, really. I was going to tell people, go out and tell 5 people today. You should be doing this every month, and you'll have 500 to 1,000 people here in 6 months. But you're right. You're right. You didn't have a choice, so I guess we can argue that the Green Party and the Libertarian Party weren't much more of a choice.
You got an opinion on free speech, TV, and link network?
The future of TV is on the internet, just like much of the information that we're getting. There are 24-hour internet TV stations right now. And you don't have to sit in front of your computer to watch them. You can run a coaxial cable to your TV, and eventually there'll be all 24-hour free music stations, free art stations, free political stations, free news stations, and you can do away with AOL and the rest. That means being the media, and that's been probably the most successful thing that we've done, is that people have decided we're going to be the media. Everybody has a website, everybody has a radio show, everybody has a TV show, everybody has a newsletter. And that's what it's going to take. Hey, I want to thank you all very much. I know this went a little long. Y'all did great coming down here.
We're about to take a break here while Radio Deception sets up. All the bands over there are looking antsy. I want to remind everybody to get a raffle ticket, because at the end we're going to have a small raffle giveaway. I guess this is Bear Pack or something like that. So, y'all can take a break, get a cigarette, get a beer, and when we come back we'll have Radio Deception for the book meeting. Thanks.